it was just awful. He hadn't come to bed that night, and Mum was up in bed herself, and went down to see where he was, and he was passed away on the couch watching TV, And
listen, you've had a tough few years yourself, so take us back to 2015 and tell us about your lovely parents.
So back in 2015, my dad passed away suddenly in his sleep at the age of 76, and then in the years that followed, my sister passed away, and then my mum passed away as well. And going back to 2015, Dad's passing was my first major experience of grief in dealing with grief in my life, and it completely and utterly shattered me. And grief is it's experienced differently for everyone, but for me I wasn't just dealing with the heartbreak of losing Dad, but I was also having a lot of physical symptoms that I was trying to manage, and I wasn't able to eat very much. I had this ongoing kind of sick feeling in my stomach, and I wasn't able to sleep properly for months either. And
was that due to shock
I think it was shock.
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just so devastated and shocked by Dad's death because it was so sudden and
so unexpected.
And it was just awful. He hadn't come to bed that night, and Mum was up in bed herself, and went down to see where he was, and he was passed away on the couch watching TV, And I got a phone call then from my neighbour at about 1 o'clock in the morning asking me to come home, and he said to me on the phone, it doesn't look good. So I drove down, just absolutely just didn't know what to expect. And when I went in the door, my neighbour was there, my mum, and my mum was roaring, crying, and I ran into the living room, and the paramedics were actually working on my dad, and the machine was actually pumping his heart, so I still thought he was alive. And he wasn't. They were just doing their best to see if they could bring him back, and they weren't able to at all. So it was absolutely shocking, just that first massive major death in my life.
And then I suppose, and again, this is coming from someone, and I'm very conscious, I have both my parents, and I haven't experienced death in my immediate family. My husband has lost both his parents, and in very different ways. One, his father died of a massive heart attack, but his mother died of cancer, so that was a longer time. Very different experiences.
Big time.
But again, I'm very conscious talking to you now that I haven't, my immediate family. But I remember him talking about the world moving on, and the days and people going to work and watching people at bus stops. That kind of sense that the world keeps moving while you're still in absolute turmoil.
Absolutely. I remember, obviously I was working, so I had a 9-to-5 job, and I used to just be watching the clock all day long in the office, just wanting the day to end, because I just wanted to get home to my apartment, get into my bed and just cry and cry and cry. I'd be crying in my car driving to work. It just one of the things I found really hard to deal with was seeing my mum going through her grief, seeing she'd been married to Dad for nearly 50 years. He suddenly passed away. She was the one who found him. She was just, it tore me apart seeing how upset she was. It's you're trying to deal with your own grief. You're seeing your parent grieving. You're having these feelings that you've never felt before. Everything is new. You just don't. It's so hard to process. There's so many layers to it, and it's a lonely place, grief, And people shouldn't, and they don't anymore. Thankfully, have to grieve alone. I'm so back in 2015 when Dad passed away. There wasn't a service available that I could just contact. I did get go to my doctor, and she was amazing, but the supports she was able to give me were really only kind of short term. So I tried, after going to the doctor, I really felt quite alone trying to find my own way out of my grief, and I tried Googling and reading up on it, but nothing seemed to give me any relief. But that's why I'm so proud of what Irish Hospice Foundation offers now. So back in 2015 there wasn't the Bereavement Support Line, but there is today, and it's a free phone service where you can speak with someone who is trained in understanding grief, and they will listen to you and they will help you navigate your grief. And I would have loved if that service was available when I needed it, and I'm so happy that it's available now for people today.
And it's such a simple thing, but having a phone line and having somebody at the end of the phone, and I mean, we have so many different helplines, but I actually didn't know that they offered this service, which is amazing.
Absolutely. So this service came about in 2020. Obviously with COVID we were dealing with really exceptional times, and people were going through very difficult grief, losing people during during that time, and
and not being able to say goodbye
and
not being able to attend funerals.
So that's how, in conjunction with the HSE and Irish Hospice Foundation, that was how we launched the Bereavement Support Line. And there were so many people phoning and so many calls that the line has been kept, and fundraising keeps that line going, and for us to be able to keep running that line. And just for example, like last year alone, there was, I think it was 1,200 phone calls to the Bereavement Support Line to speak with one of our trained volunteers. And
wow.
I would urge anyone to please do phone. It operates Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And when you phone the Bereavement Support Line, you'll be met with a very compassionate person at the other end of the line who will help you navigate your grief.
And we know loneliness is such it's such a big problem in Ireland, and especially I think around this time of year, whether you've lost somebody earlier in the year or around Christmas time, it doesn't matter.
It could trigger a loss from 20 years ago, and the Bereavement Support Line is open to anybody who has a recent loss or a past loss.
Okay.
Because grief doesn't have a timeline. You know what I mean? And it doesn't just switch off after a certain period of time. It stays with us. It changes, but it stays with us. So if you ever need support, it is the Bereavement Support Line is there for you.
All right, and there's an amazing event that's taking place. It's called the Never Forgotten Night Walk. It is supported by Londis, and it's inviting people all across Ireland to come together 5 p.m. on Friday, the 28th of November. So that's Friday week, and you can walk, jog, run 5k in memory of loved ones who have died, and all of the information on that, which I think is just a lovely way, whether you want to do it with people or do it on your own. You can log on to ihfnightwalk.ie and you can register there. Those that raise over a certain amount, there's t-shirts and tote bags and everything available as well.
Exactly. So everybody who signs up, you'll receive a beautiful Never Forgotten Night Walk t-shirt, and on that t-shirt you can actually write the name of the person you were walking in memory of. So it's really beautiful to have their name right beside your heart as you're taking part. And everyone who goes on to raise €50 or more will receive a beautiful Never Forgotten tote bag as a thank you from Irish Hospice Foundation for supporting this fundraiser.